I'd like to call to order the Westerly Public Schools School Building Subcommittee meeting for Wednesday, April 23rd, 2025. The time is 6 o'clock. Members present are Audrey Fobert, Steve Marone, Kristen Federico, Chris Lund, Dr. Mark Garceau, Mike Ober, Cindy Kirchhoff, Mark McKinnon, and myself, Justin Hopkins. We also have guests in attendance, Ashley Prester from DBVW, John Scheib from NCA, and Deb Reading from Downs. First order of business is approval of minutes from the April 9th meeting 2 weeks ago. Those should have gone out in your packet. And if there are no modifications to these minutes, we'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None. Motion carries unanimously. Next item is public comment. Seeing no members of the public, we move to item number 5, approval of invoices. In the Downs update, we have a number of invoices for approval, and Deb, unless I'm missing something, these are all just these are all consultant invoices. We don't have any pay applications.
That's correct.
All right, so all of these invoices have been reviewed by Downs, and I'll read off the invoice number, the amount, and if there are any questions, feel free to ask. And if there are no questions, we'll entertain the motion to approve. So we'll take these, looks like one by one. First invoice is for TSKP, invoice number 230601-20 for professional services for State Street Elementary School through April 3rd, 2025 in the amount of $13,130.67, which represents 83% of the total contract bill.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None. It's going to be 9-0. The next one is for Brewster Thornton Group Architects, invoice number 12531 for architectural and engineering services for RIDE Stage 2, Westerly Public Schools Capital Improvements 5-year plan through February 28th, 2025 in the amount of $32,086.50.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None. Okay, the next one, these are going to be 2 invoices. We'll take them together in one motion. Collier's Project Leaders Commissioning Services at Dunn's Corner and Springbrook Elementary Schools through March 31st, 2025 in the total amount of $6,384.60. which includes invoice number 1032381 for Springbrook in the amount of $3,384.50, and invoice number 1040500 for Dunn's Corner in the amount of $3,000.10.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Any other invoices, Deb, that I missed? I know there are some change orders that will go over in
We're good.
owner's project manager / architect. update.
Right, we're all set. Thank you.
So we'll move on to that line item.
So. Start off with Ashley. if you'd like.
I have a question about procedure. I have some stuff about the middle school. Do we want to go through and do all that? Or do we want to do just Dunn's and Springbrook and then come back around to the middle school? Since that's the capital projects?
Problem?
Yeah. Well, I'll give you a break.
Sure.
That's fine.
And we'll let
Okay.
John get through and sandwich him in the middle.
Okay. So it's only gonna be a couple slides here real quick. We've received 2 requests from the Springbrook principal, Mark, Deb, and myself, And the contractor met with the Springbrook principal to go about, talking about summer work, teachers moving out, packing, all that kind of stuff. The first one is the administration area. We had encountered more of the wall covering. And Mark, Deb, and I had made a call to not, the wall covering was in decent shape. And we had made a call a couple months ago, knowing what we might encounter, because they were going to try to do that work over a school vacation, regarding pulling the wall covering off and having to skim coat the walls and everything. And we had processed a credit for $2,544 in change order 8. The principal is asking that we reconsider that and go back to the painting scope that was in the contract. I did come up with a potential cost using the last summer's change order for potentials that we could encounter regarding removing the wall covering, both patching the walls and new floor base, and potentially any corrections of moisture issues. So wanted to open it for discussion with you guys if you would consider it. I'm thinking it's going to cost around $15,000 in addition to us giving back the credit of $2,544. If we want to pursue this would be summer work, and they would just schedule it over the summer break.
Any questions?
Where are we on contingency?
We are at an overall contingency of 3.88%. It's a total of $2,018,559.
That's for all three.
That's all the schools.
Well, I guess it's not something our guys could handle at some point.
That's kind of where I was thinking we would do. The wrinkle I was throwing, I was gonna go right over the wall covering, it has been in the past.
Yeah.
They had asked to be removed. I don't know if that needs to be removed. It's in good shape. It's been in an area that hasn't been beat up by kids. Hasn't been water damage in that area. We don't see it peeling on the seams.
So if you went over it, are you saying another covering or paint or what are we talking about?
Paint right over it. That right there you see is paint over wallpaper right there.
It was probably the original pink that was on the whole school, or the mauve.
So it says patch, but you don't think they really are.
Well, if they start removing
They
the wall
remove it.
covering,
Got
we
it.
may.
Yeah, it removed, what we saw last summer was that it peeled the layer of the paper off, and then they had to skim coat, basically
Right.
skim plaster the wall to fix everything.
We're talking three rooms?
4. It's the 3 offices and the suspension room, the in-school suspension. If they even have that, it might be different now.
Yeah.
It's the 3 rooms on the ends and then one
It's a
near the
Zen
nurse.
den, is that what you said?
In the Zen room.
There.
So, sir, why do they want to remove it?
The rest of the school has everything. They just want consistency.
Doesn't look bad or.
No, that's the reason we made the call before, just to,
So it's kind of
Yeah,
like vanity, not need.
Correct.
And you think that could be done by,
Yes.
well, not obviously by.
That's about 17 grand total, right?
Right.
17.5.
we would be adjustment to the up to 17. I really don't know how much. It depends when we pull the wallpaper off, what we're gonna come up against.
Because then when we pulled the wallpaper off last time, were there?
There was some moisture exposure, but again, as Marcus said, it hasn't been an area
Right.
that's been exposed to the roof leaks and stuff, so. I mean, I just said that I would bring this to the committee and allow the committee to debate it. I mean,
I wish you would have started with the floors.
sorry.
Doesn't take away from an opportunity to get new furniture into Springbrook and Dunn's Corners.
Pretty good.
You know what I mean? That's around that.
I agree.
Well, we could debate the other one too, if you wanted me to bring up we could kind of look at it as a whole package. The second one was the kindergarten flooring. The 7 kindergarten rooms are the last 7 classrooms that have not had floor replacement yet. We had determined during design that those rooms were in decent shape, They didn't have the exposure conditions that the lower level had at the time. This would not mean all the classrooms. We still have the 6 on the upper level that have not been done yet either. We are doing the corridor this summer. As well, so that would be all the corridors in the building. This doesn't include the admin suite, but she has requested us to consider and present to you guys the classroom area in the kindergarten area. We have a unit price of $20 a square foot. When you multiply it by 5,251 square feet is a ridiculous number. We have a provision in our specifications that when it gets unfair to one party or the other, we're allowed to renegotiate. So we would ask for a cost on that if you're looking to pursue it. I have concerns about, and I had this in the write-up to you guys, I have concerns about material availability, subcontractor availability. They've filled their summer schedule up already. We don't know if they're even available to do this work. And then to add this work onto the project contractor right now might be a little questionable.
And the reason,
It's the last 7 classrooms that are on grade. We know there's been some moisture coming up from those areas. There's a lot worse in the lower level.
We did see quite significant with the hallway being mitigated. It kind of pushed the moisture to the sides into the classrooms.
So this scope of work would include the moisture mitigation that we would recommend you use in all your future floor replacements in this building.
But you don't know if you can get the guys.
right,
We don't even, we don't know.
They're
if we-
booked for the summer, so even if you can get them, if booking is getting really tight, price is gonna be elevated,
Yes,
right?
probably, yeah. I think we're presenting this to you that if you just said no, we could nix it. Or if you say, let's get more information, we have a meeting tomorrow. And we could request a contract, hey, they're thinking about doing this. Can you find out what your guys' availability is?
I'd like to get more information. If
Okay,
there's any possibility of moisture in the classrooms, that certainly has to take priority over the wall in the principal's office, to be very honest.
okay.
but it sounds like it's gonna be a lot more.
Yeah, I mean, you're probably
Yeah.
talking $100,000 all in.
Based on that unit price, $100,000, yeah. The entire building, I think, was under 200. So just imagine the amount of flooring. And then the cost for just those 7 classrooms seems not proportional.
And you still have the upper level that doesn't have the flooring.
Correct.
So I guess I feel like if the upper level had it and the lower level had it and there was just this one area, but can this be done at a later time?
Yes.
Yes?
That was
Oh,
my
yeah.
second question.
It was
Right,
Something
only
like
over summer break though,
Can
because.
Greg
the
bang this
moisture
out a classroom
mitigation-
at a time or something?
He does layovers. This we want to rip off, moisture mitigate, and then come
Right.
back. So it would be we go out to
And
bid.
it's,
for this.
yeah,
Yeah, it would be a 2-week process in the summer, at least, because you have to strip the floor, dry it out, then put the moisture mitigation, dry it out, top coat it with the Ardex, then put the flooring down. So it's a multi-step process.
And it pretty much probably can't be done this summer. Which sounds like,
We have not confirmed it, but I suspect that the subcontractor for flooring, a very good subcontractor, Ruggieri, they do a lot of summer slammer schoolwork. I would suspect that they're full up, but we can always find out. If it's Dr. Garceau has requested some more information, we can
I'm
definitely
gonna
ask.
stick with the answer, we'd like more information.
exactly.
Okay.
We'll request an actual email from the flooring contractor that they're available to do it and have it done. for the
Yeah,
start of
and they
school.
can get our
Right.
material.
And they can get.
and,
We could, and we'll talk to the contractor and see, is it worth going down that road to get a price?
right,
Right,
Because we do not want to proceed with the unit price.
Right.
exactly.
So,
Well, the first thing is if they're available.
right.
Yeah.
We want them, honestly, if they came back and said, we can do 3 of the classrooms, would we want to do that? Just do whatever we can? But I would think if they're in there working, doing that 7 isn't really much more.
That's 2 weeks worth of work, you said?
probably 2 to 3 weeks. So it could definitely be done in the summer outside of this.
But it can't be done because of break or something.
No, we talked about breaks. It's not enough time because of the moisture mitigation you gotta put down.
I know Jen was concerned because the floors do it wet and they get slippery. We just had a teacher fall, so.
And what's the flooring that's going back in its place?
Luxury vinyl tile. It's the no wax, so it would help in the long run as well, reduce your costs, but.
Will slip and fall for the M word. Will make me a bit anxious, so.
Her too. And I think she'd be happy to hear the floors are getting done if it was at the sake of her walls.
Okay, we'll come back to you on the 14th with more information on that one. Do you want to hold on I don't think we need to give them a go ahead on the admin area right now until we know what we're doing with the other stuff.
Agreed.
Okay. All right, so I'll give her a heads up, or Mark can give her a heads up, whichever way we want to do it. Two other orders of business. This was this is a miss by electrical, but it needs work that needs to be done. In Dunn's Corner in the lobby, and actually you can't even see the picture there. It had a picture of Smiling Deb coming through the door. The main entrance to the administration suite, those two red dashes are electric panels that were behind doors that were on hold opens with frosted glass, and our engineer missed it. It's not to code, so we wouldn't have thought to look there, but I'm gonna be completely upfront, they missed it. These walls are being demoed as part of the lobby renovations. And we submitted a proposal request to the electrical sub and the GC several weeks ago, and they have not proceeded with it. They have not gotten us pricing. This is work that absolutely has to happen to get this job done this summer. So we want to issue what's called a CCD, Construction Change Directive. We've done it a couple times now on this project to basically tell them proceed with the work. We'll handle the paperwork and the costs later, because this is absolutely time-sensitive work. I talked with CES, my engineer, and priced up, and they say not to exceed 30,000 would be in that range, because what we would do is go back to the wireway raceway above the ceiling and refeed to a new location. There's a spot where the original 1960s fire alarm is right outside the administration office. We can put a wall there and put two panels right on that wall and service it, no problem. But this is all because we're not seeing progression from the contractor to price things in a timely manner.
Okay, so work that needs to be done in order to facilitate the completion of the work.
Yes.
Are there any questions? So you probably need a formal authorization from the building committee to issue a CCD.
Correct.
Not to exceed 30,000.
Yes, please.
I would make that motion.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Thank you. The other request, I went out of order here, I'm sorry. The top part of the top text is for the bottom right photo. The contractor is getting ready to start work on the soffit area, and they asked us, do you know if it's hot? If it has any material in it that might be hazardous? It is not in the current hazmat report, so they've requested that be tested before they pull the louvers off and disturb anything. 1967 puts in the error, there could be something in the stucco, or we don't know. So I've received a proposal from Vortex for $3,450. No DBBW markup, nothing involved with me on this one. And the contractor has already asked us a second time if we've gotten this work approved yet. So I'd like to release them to get testing on that work. Or if you remember, the hazmat consultant is through us on this. That's the reason we have to do this.
And move 3450 for the hazmat order.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
The rest of my slides I'll defer till the capital project. Thank you.
Next up, John.
State Street, okay.
Absolutely, State Street. Yeah.
Okay, some. Yeah, we'll take a look at some of the photos and some things. So last time, 2 weeks ago, we did talk, I'll just mention, we did talk about the clock. We did put in the proposal request for, basically it was two things. One was to, revise the clock to the type that we were talking about. And then secondly, to get a full credit, to not do the clock at all in case you wanted to have somebody independent do some artwork up there. So that what we'll do is, and there was a lot of follow-up about the operation of the clock. So when we come back, when O&G has pricing, we'll come back and review, the information, some of the backup information about the clock. But you will see for now, this is now the background view. The background view is what that clock would look like. So again, we're in the midst of the two-year construction process. We're really about halfway through new construction. Even though it doesn't look it right now, they are still on schedule. Things will definitely accelerate through the summer months with good weather and more optimal conditions for rapid construction progress. And some of the photos you'll see will start to reveal some of what's going to happen and why it's going to start to look like it's coming together really fast.
Purple.
What's that?
It's purple.
Purple. Oh, yes. The building is purple. Yeah. Well, we'll see that in some of the pictures. that will change. So whether you like it or
I know.
So some of the starting more or less, we'll just progress. This is our little diagram of where the picture's taken, the little arrow there. We'll move west to east. So as you're on the western part of the site, now you see a lot of concrete foundations are in place and some of the metal stud framing. It's important to keep in mind again that we have this combination of structural steel framing, the darker steel, and then the light gauge metal framing. That this is all part of the load bearing system of the building. It's not just metal studs that you pop up in the classroom or to separate a classroom or an office. It is an engineered system. And then those roof trusses that will come on top are will start to take shape and be placed upon that vertical framing. Looking more towards where the main office is going to be, in the main entrance, this is what the under slab looks like, between the vapor barrier and the steel reinforcing. And the reason why it looks like it's going all up and down and why don't we have a level surface, because a lot of it is because of the fact that some of those thicker areas have more reinforcing and they're going to have more concrete. Those are where some of those bearing walls are going to be placed. So that's and all the pipes sticking up are part of all the plumbing that's going to be there eventually. So here's some of the inside of the purple paneling, the purple gypsum based exterior sheathing that's going on around the gym. So you get a sense of all those large window openings that are there in the gym and some of the large structural steel. And I don't know if so we're all the way now at the eastern part of the building here where the gym is located. And just to the north there, in case anybody peeked, what's happening behind there is starting to put the roof trusses together. So this was just yesterday. I don't know if they've hoisted any up onto the building yet. I didn't drive by today. But these are the roof trusses. They're coming in 3 or 4 pieces. So I'll take a moment here to describe a little bit of what's happening. So this next roof truss, basically, if this lift wasn't in the way, they would actually tilt it up, swing it around 180 degrees, and put it onto the next one. And that would be, and they're starting to group them into sections of 5, I think. And then that's about a 10-foot section.
they're gonna lift everything in 10-foot sections first in these 3 or 4 different pieces, and then they're gonna combine them when they're up there, up on the roof. So that way, you know, it might seem logical to take this piece and join it with this piece, but it's actually a little more stable to start putting them together in depth rather than in total area. And then they connect them all when another section of 5 trusses that form the peak of the roof, which are tucked around the corner of the building, those will go on top once it's up on the building. So that's why now, with all this happening in this corner of the site, you'll start to see they are going to work from the gym and start to work their way east to west on the building. That's just a general overview of progress. There's just another view. You can get a sense of how that's going. They do have multiple crews now working. They have one crew doing some of the framing of the walls that we saw much further over in the kindergarten and pre-K area. And then there's a crew specifically doing the trusses over here. So that's the general update. We do have, I think for only the second time on the project, we do have a PCO to review. There will be more, trust me. But for now, some of the discussions that happen with the contractor are that, as you well know from the other school projects, that we start with receiving an initial proposed change order. We'll review it, and then after some review, we start to talk with O&G and the subs about the validity of the pricing, and then if we have any questions or comments, they come back to us with the revised pricing. So this one is ready to go. Basically, it's a proposed change order, PCO 8. This will become our upon approval, this would become change order number 2, I think. We'll have to double check that, but I think it's just number 2. If you remember way back, probably late last year, we had change order number 1 had to do with the amount of rock that was discovered on site through the construction process, through the excavation process. So this one basically deals with the fact that early on there was an RFI, or I can't remember whether it was an RFI or a part of the submittal process, reviewing the VRF units, variable refrigerant flow. They're part of the heating cooling system for the building, the more high efficiency system that we're putting in here. The actual VRF units receive their own power, and that power is a 208 volt type power. But the condensate pumps they receive, so basically this is a good example here. It's a totally different type of unit, but somewhere in there's a pump that's sending the water that gets created back out of the building, or into a loop that exhausts that condensate water, similar to the way your air conditioner just drips water out on the ground. But in this case, we've got to contain that water and pump it out the building. Those pumps for a couple of the units were not powered separately. So this change order asks that they provide that single phase 110 power separate, or 120 volt power separate. And then, so what happened was with this PCO, the reason why it's already been back and forth once already was that the contractor came back and provided a power line all the way back to the electrical panel in conduit, and CES reviewed it and said, no, this actually, you only need to go to the nearest 120 power source, and you can run it via NC cable. So that brought the cost down from $5,000 something to $3,628. And that would be, that's the only one that would need to be in this next change order. We will probably, the next time we come to meet in front of you, I expect O&G will have some updated pricing on another 3, 4, maybe 5 that we would be packaging together as the next change order. So at this time, we're looking for action on approving PCO 8 for $3,628 to put forward as the next change order on the project.
Any
Any
questions
questions?
about this?
Motion to approve?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Yeah.
Thank
So
you,
that's
Dan.
what's in the report so far
Thank you.
for State Street.
Everything's going well up there. Yeah. So let me give you a quick update on where we're at with stage 2. We have received comments back from RIDE. They're a little more than I usually see at this point. But I know that they have outside review right now, looking at a lot of submittals, and so more questions have been being asked over this past year. So Brewster Thornton is working on responding to those comments. And I have a few questions for Mark and for Cindy as well. We'll get all that information together over the next week and get that back to RIDE so that we can move forward. So that's where we are right now with the stage 2. And then I'm gonna hand it right over, well, right back to Ashley, so he can update you on the roof project over at the middle school, which is actually part of that stage 2. So
What's the deadline to get comments back?
he didn't give me one, but I reached out to Kelly this morning on that. I thought that was strange, because they usually have it on documentation. It's not there or in email. Probably not.
Just, I'm working in another district as stage 2, and they asked for the deadline of May 5th, which is a week from Monday. So just
Okay.
May 1.
I was thinking maybe next week, right? So May 2nd. So good, thank you.
It's interesting that they'll be able to process it before the end of the month for the vote.
Right.
May 5th is pretty close.
Right.
All right, so, let me go back here. So as you know, we were, a separate project, through capital. We were procured to, do the, first phase of the middle school roof. If you remember, the middle school was built around 2005, 2006, that range. Has an EPDM roof that's nearing its 20-year lifespan. Phase 1, the way that it was proposed that Mark set up, was that it's gonna be done in pie wedges. Phase 1 being the one closest to the woods and closest to, the scenic highway. And then phase 2 would be the classrooms and the auditorium and media center, and then phase 3 would be the cafeteria. One section per year. We've run into a little bit of a snafu with this one because we don't have approval on the stage 2, which this is supposed to go under for reimbursement. We cannot engage RIDE for a 3-stage SDDD/CD review until they've approved it. So, we're not expecting RIDE approval on the stage 2 until their May vote, typically. So, we've also, because the procurement was a little later than normal, we are pretty much past the bid cycle for summer 25 work for this. So very early on in the project, Mark, Deb, and I talked about if it was possible to delay this to 26, the first phase. And I don't know if, I mean, the roof is, you have a few issues, but you're still on top of it. So we feel that we could Band-Aid it through another year without much difficulty. And so, we then started looking at, we did DD documents, and we went out for an estimate with Alana. And it came back, base bid for the phase 1 work was about 1.49. And the 25 construction number is only about 1.4. So we're a little concerned about that. I'm gonna talk about what the difference between the base bid and the alternate is in a second. You can see the total budget is about 4.475 million, for construction,
Square footage.
88,000. So we had numbers from Garland that were provided to the district. And I'm gonna show you some things that, we think might have not been included in that original scope. So, yeah, some of the pictures aren't showing up here, but in general, actually, I'm gonna go back one slide because this actually shows it better. You see the two mechanical units on the roof on the bottom, they are slammed down tight to the roof. If we were going to add insulation, which is a normal process for re-roofing a building, adding it to current code, we would be required on this building, it has an R20, 4 inches right now. We would have to add another 3 inches for another R15. To do that, we would have to crane off every mechanical unit at every phase, new curves, pull everything up, which means disconnecting the MEP systems, unconnecting the piping, the electrical ductwork, bringing the units to the ground, do all the work, bring the units back. A lot of work. Mechanical units are pushing 20 years old at this point. I don't recommend touching them because as soon as we touch them, Mark and I have a new term that we use all the time. It introduces gremlins. That you never know what is going to be slightly twisted or slightly misaligned or not work. We might have refrigerant procurement issues because this is a 20-year-old building versus the newer refrigerants that are available. So we were very concerned about it. So our base bid is based on a code allowed, what's called a roof recover. We've talked about this with Dave Murphy, the building inspector. We've talked about it with Garland, and it is warrantyable. Essentially, what we do is we leave the existing membrane there. We slash it so that it doesn't perform a barrier. We put a new cover board over and new roofing right on top of it. So we're not adding any insulation, but what that does is now we don't have to move any of the mechanical units, which is a huge cost. That's where I think some of the Garland costs might have not been there. In addition, if we were adding 3 inches of insulation plus the cover board, we'd have to add 4.5 inches of wood blocking around the whole perimeter of the building. That gets costly very fast. 88,000 square feet, a lot of perimeter. So our base bid was based on roof recover, replace the wet installations. We do have an IR scan of the wet areas of the building, so we would cut those areas out and fix them. Keep the R20 insulation and put a new membrane over. The alternate was for all that additional work that I explained, which is why the base bid was about 1.49. The alternate was another almost $500,000, which was all that additional work. What we're recommending, because of the stage 2 status, we're recommending pausing phase 1 and actually joining it with phase 2. We have only been currently contracted for phase 1, but we did submit costs for phase 2 and 3, which are significantly reduced because we've already done a lot of this work for those phases. We're recommending pausing this until early fall when we have the decision, maybe even late summer, when we have the decision from RIDE that we can go for reimbursement. Go through the reimbursement process, bid it in November, December, award in January, and then we have all that spring to procure the materials. This is a little conjecture, but given the climate of the economy and everything right now, it might actually, who knows, it might be good that we wait a little bit to let the kind of everything settle out so we can verify that the estimates are all accurate with the tariffs and everything else. So what that will do for, this allows us also, and I didn't put it on the slide here, but we already have the 2025 number in the budget. So we wouldn't have to tell the contractor we can't have a requisition until July 1, which is what we did on Springbrook and what we were planning on doing here. Now we have enough capital so they could order the materials in February and March, have them ready to go on site, and we just get them running as soon as possible. We even talked about maybe trying to start doing some work over vacations if it's even possible, or early work once they're outside, maybe they can start working on the gym, things like that. We'll play that by ear. But what this allows us to do is that it allows us to bring phase 1 and phase 2 together. So if you go back to 3 slides, it'll allow us to do a bulk of the school, about 50,000 square feet of the school, the cafeteria, not the cafeteria, the auditorium, media center, 2 classroom wings, locker rooms, gym. Get that all done in summer of 26. For an estimated construction value of 3.25. And our budget is right around 3.25. We do have some contingency numbers in the estimate because we are a DD right now. So we feel we're on track if we go this route with that. So I think I have one more slide to present after this, but I wanted to kind of open it up for discussion, how you guys feel about holding it off. I mean, we're kind of at the point where we have to hold it off unless we decide to not go for reimbursement.
Great.
Yeah, I mean, it's 35 cents on the dollar, so.
And the change to how you would do it doesn't affect the reimbursement.
No.
What is there if in this kind of realignment, would you bid the entire thing and break it out into separate sections? Like,
We could talk about that. I had actually asked that question during the RFQ process, whether it made more sense to bid it to one contractor, and the town had replied that it was going to be a different bid each year.
so hear me out.
Yeah.
Mark.
Wasn't Mark.
I know who it was. That $4.5 million estimate was the base bid as you described it, which was a recovering of the roof.
No, they bid, Garland gave us that number. And according to where now Mark reminded me that our estimate was high on Springbrook, same estimator. And it did come in lower. But the difference between my estimator and Garland is 58% right now. It's way skewed. I think maybe we have too much protection in there. I do have contingencies for where we do have to work around mechanical units. I have some money for every one of them to handle issues that Mark's gonna have to deal with.
The reason why I asked that is that the estimate is about $50 a square foot. And when I was doing the math on that, I was assuming that was a rip and replace all of the insulation. I'll be honest with you, most recent EPDM roofs I'm seeing for bids are $30 a square foot, and that includes all the insulation as part of it. So I think the estimates are out, or something's not. So I think when you put this out to bid, I think you're going to get those type of numbers. And I guess my question is there anything that we're calling for from a proprietary standpoint that is?
It is Garland's, which is the FPS modified 2 layers of 80 mil membrane, cold applied asphalt mopped in. It's the district standard.
With daily inspections and daily field reports.
Yeah.
If I may, the estimated cost from Keogh during the stage 2 came back at what year? Oh, there it is. $6,553,000
The whole.
for the entire thing. Broken down over 3 years, they're at 4.6 for the first 2 phases.
And I'm putting it at 3 point.
Well, this is complete with soft costs and all that.
But you said this is the first 2 years, right?
Right, but that includes the
Soft
soft
costs,
costs
okay.
and all that.
So yeah, the total budget was 4.9 from, Garland. So and you're at 6 point what?
6.5.
Okay, so they're even 1.6 off.
So with our $10,000 fee in your fee,
Mhm.
and the remainder of the 20% soft costs and your DD estimate, we're at 5.8 and we have 6.5 in the stage 2. So in that regard, we are covered.
And are we replacing a Garland roof? No, we're replacing an EPDM roof,
EPDM.
or recovering an EPDM roof. What's
Yeah,
the warranty?
Standard 30.
yeah,
Standard 30.
yep.
So the $20 a square foot premium that we're paying for this roof doesn't get us any longer warranty.
Yeah, I know what you're asking. We have, this is a westerly spec. I typically do a TPO or a PVC roof. And we see the same 30-year warranties, weldable, everything, but it's different, different group of contractors.
Well, we're not putting this out on the street anytime soon.
No, I'm just asking for permission to pause because my contract currently says we're gonna do work this summer and it doesn't seem that it's gonna happen if we're already in May next week.
Yeah, I don't see where we have a choice.
Just the path of travel for the eligibility for reimbursement is enough
Yeah.
to warrant
Yep.
the pause.
I absolutely agree.
But you don't need any formal motion here.
I don't think so. I just wanted to make sure that everyone heard it and that we know what we're doing. We've made the decision on that.
So with the new layer being laid, the mechanicals can stay in place?
Yeah, there's only a couple that will have to move because they're hanging over, that we can't get someone into that like 8-inch space.
Yeah.
So we're gonna lift those couple units up so that they can get more room. It was something that was done when the building was originally built, and there's just it's a little short-sighted in regards to future work on it. Like you can't get under there when it's only 8 inches of space. So they clearly roofed before they put the unit down and then walked away. So it's unfortunate, but it happens.
Actually, when you lay another membrane, is that what you call it? on
Yeah.
top? Is that like layering a double with shingles? Like, let's say,
That's exactly what this roof recover code allows. It was because of shingle roofs. But it's been applied for certain special applications like this as well.
and how long will that roof? 20 years?
We still got the full warranty, the full 30 years. Garland has said they fully warranty it with that system. As long as it's on the cover board, mechanically fastened down, glue it to the cover board, they're fine with it.
They're responsible for identifying and taking care of all the wet spots and everything else too.
They're,
Because they're the ones that put up the warranty, so they're gonna make sure the roof is.
they did an IR scan. Yeah, they did an IR scan when we did Springbrook. They did 2. They have since, we asked them, can you do an updated one when we're ready to go to bid? And they said, well, it's gonna cost this. And we said, well, if you're proprietary, shouldn't you kind of do that?
Right.
So we're gonna kind of punt that back to them about it. It's about $2,900 or something for a new study. So,
Just one more question. After 30 years, then what? You have to rip off the top membrane to replace it with a new one? You can't lay over that again.
you can't lay over that again, no way. So, at some point in the future, I would say that you're gonna be into some sort of mechanical replacement, whether that is full unit replacement or fixing the guts. But as you can see from some of the pictures, the units are, actually, those aren't some great photos. Some of them are really showing a lot of rust and a lot of weather. It's coastal environment. It's been 20 years. So I think at some point you're into changing mechanical units at some point.
They probably won't make it 30.
So they won't make another 30 now. But at that point, when you touch the mechanical unit, then you put it at the right height, to the right roof later on. Because you're already gonna be changing it anyway.
Makes sense.
Who's the Garland rep?
Daniel.
You want his contact information, Justin, I'll let you know.
I do.
Okay, I'll send that to you. One last thing on this, I'm just projecting out to the 2027 phase three, taking the same cost per square foot that we calculated and adding 6% escalation, which is about what we're seeing right now per year, even though the market's crazy. And our phase three is projecting, because that's the cafeteria area, the last classroom wing, and the front area where the admin is projecting at about 2.2. And from the budgets that we have, we're at about 1.2. So you're showing a little bit of a shortfall for that project based on these estimates. Now, if we find a way of working out the costs that Justin is saying, we see some bid day savings like we did on Springbrook. We also will have between 25, 26 and the 27, the chance to recoup that phase 1 and 2 reimbursement from RIDE if they pay on time. We also do have some money from the Springbrook roof that we never used that could be passed forward. But I would think that when you get to the phase 3, we might be looking at having to find some more money for that phase. So. Okay. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Ashley.
Anything else for capital?
Over the break week, the door hardware project was completed. Middle school was secured. We finished up board and Babcock. We also finished up the locker room projects. They were able to paint the offices and over the tile, get rid of the yellow tiles that we had in there and the green partitions on the bathrooms. So nice consistency there.
Excuse me. Cool, good. What's lined up for the summer? What isn't lined up for the summer? I guess I should ask.
The one I am most excited about is mini splits installed. And the kindergarten wing at Springbrook, we were concerned with the moisture. All 7 of those classrooms are going to get a mini split installed, so that should help.
And Mark, you know, when you mentioned that the other day, I meant to ask you, send me over the schedule that you have for that and your contact, because I'm going to be at those schools probably almost every day, so I'll try to help cover, you know, that work too. So that you're not spread quite as thin.
Any other questions for Mark? Okay, we're going to move on to subcommittee charter discussion, so I want to please allow our guests. Yeah. All right, thank you, guys. Thank you.
Justin, I'll provide you guys an update. I know I leave for this week.
Okay, good. Thank you. So similar to at the last meeting, we've made some updates. Slows down. The first one is the markup version showing the language from the original 2020 school building committee charter membership with the obvious edits, the areas that have been deleted are in the strike through, and the areas that are added are in the red underline. And then there's just a clean version of how it reads. So when we discussed this at the last building committee meeting, really the only modifications that we discussed were regarding the membership. So I'll just highlight the modifications that went from the last revision to this revision, which under the membership, when we met last week, it read something along the lines as the building committee shall have at least 8 members and no more than 12, and had no discussion about alternates. So there were comments at the last meeting that, you know, do you really want to limit it to 12? Yeah, I just took that out and said that's up to the school committee to figure out how high the membership goes. Usually when you get above 12, it starts getting to be a challenge. But I don't, what's your committee that you deal with?
No,
Yeah, plenty, yeah. But just adding, two alternates in case we run into quorum issues. Also, the listed in the bullets under membership are basically what RIDE requires for a building committee composition. So we struck out, the designation of quantities, just identifying that that is the minimum. If the school committee wishes to appoint more members than one school committee member or more members of the planning board, so be it. The only distinction here is I added both the superintendent of schools and director of building maintenance are permanent members of the committee because they're required by RIDE regulations. So I'm sorry, Mark and Mark, but you guys will be permanent members. Yes.
Justin, no teachers?
There are no teachers that are required by the RIDE school construction regulations. So what are listed under the membership are just those parties that are required. So to me, that's up to the school, or I guess the posture of this membership is that it would be up to the school committee to populate. Obviously, we thought it would be advantageous to have teachers that are on the building committee, but it's not.
There's bullet from the bottom.
I know, I know, it could,
Yeah,
yeah, I just think it's important. The people down there in the trenches, sometimes there's a different point of view, but that could work for.
so I forget who may have been absent at the
I
last
was.
meeting and seeing this for the first time.
Yeah.
But so maybe just to give a high level of the edits that have been made. So under objective of the committee, we took out to complete both stage 1 and stage 2 of the RIDE necessity of school construction application. That was very specific to the elementary school direction provided in the original charter. And we just simply added prepare and submit the documents required for additional funding agencies, including the RIDE School Building Authority and available local and federal grant programs, so as to not limit ourselves in one direction or the other. Added a bullet to basically say assist Westerly Public Schools in the evaluation of existing facility conditions and management of annual capital improvement expenditures. So between items number 1 and item number 2 under objectives of the committee are basically the charge of if there are major projects that involve, future configuration of the Westerly Public Schools, that is covered, but also kind of what we've been talking about for the management of kind of this annual process. For instructions and guidance, basically try to embed some of that capital assistance. So item number 1 basically remains unchanged other than just establishing projected student population in lieu of demographic reports, and add existing facilities conditions. Added the prioritization of capital improvements should be evaluated on a 5-year basis to include required scope of work, cost, and funding projections and schedule. A little minor edit is that guidance from RIDE is available and should inform instead of guide all work of the committee. Removed items number 3 and 4. Item 3 was specific to, as of now, obsolete Jacobs Facilities Report. Item 4, I felt could remain unsaid, rather than be specific to alternatives should include green design scenarios to achieve maximum reimbursement from RIDE. I just feel like that's covered in the general purview of the building committee to cover those. Committee should meet as many times as needed to complete its work rather than each stage. And added item number 6, the committee shall recommend engagement of outside consultants and or professionals to assist Westerly Public Schools in major projects and capital improvements. So while we're not a hiring or spending body, by and large, we recommend hiring of these all consultants to the school committee.
Do we require or just recommend? Like, I read that as like, Deb's role, like somebody neutral or somebody that we hire to come in and assist us because we're all have other jobs we're doing. So it's nice to have a person who's in charge of that. Is that what number 6 means? That like Deb?
Yes, so though we've been managing our consultants and approving additional services through their existing contract, their original contract, they came in and interviewed in front of the subcommittee. And then we made a recommendation to the school committee to engage in a formal contract because it's the school committee that is the body that can authorize those funds. So
So we would always have somebody through some process guiding our.
it depends. Frankly, it depends on right now, the district hires professionals to complete the work on kind of an ad hoc basis. So I would say it's not a standing person, although we've utilized Downs so far, based on economy of scale that they're already in the district and already in our buildings. So there will undoubtedly be some capital projects. Once we complete the major projects, there will undoubtedly be some capital projects that don't simply need owner's project manager.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think kind of leaving that to the purview of the committee to understand when we need additional help.
Right, and
Yes.
and you would be able to advocate to this
Yes.
group to say, you know,
And there's a ride threshold for a dollar amount that says you need certain people to.
Yeah, it's usually like over 500,000. Is that what it is? Or
500.
500? Is that what I said, or did I just say 5,000? It's 500,000, yes. Okay, reporting duties, this was just a kind of correction of the way that we are currently doing business rather than the chair providing the school committee an update at each regular school committee meeting. We put periodic regular meetings under subcommittee reports as required or at the request of the school committee. We went over membership.
Can I go back to membership?
Yep.
Sorry, Justin. So I am thinking, to be honest with you, that, so if you go to the third bullet, a member who has knowledge of the educational mission and function of the facility, technically that's, I'm assuming, like my role. But we might want to consider, I understand your point of having the teacher perspective on here. Especially if like Mark and our roles change over time or we leave or whatever, but like, I don't know, I think there is value to having a teacher on the committee. So at least noting the school committee could appoint a teacher or someone somehow communicate that.
Right,
If they
I
have
was
the
gonna
ability
say
to
that.
appoint another member
Not
to,
me.
besides what's
Right.
recommended by Ryan.
Because I was wondering when you said that also, when you said, well, the school committee could, but will they know that they can? You know what I'm saying? Like, they'll look at this list and be like,
Well,
okay, yeah.
I've made a note,
Okay,
so
there you go.
I will bring it up about, you know.
Yeah, but
my-
also you're not always gonna be there.
No, but when we're talking about the charter. So once it's in place, so we have to go to the school committee.
Right.
We discuss how we want it. I'll mention that we should have a, teacher as one of the members. And then we can discuss whether or not, I can't see them saying
I
no, but, you know.
Right.
But once
But if
it's
they
there.
didn't know, they might not think.
Right. So, and I'm sure Justin will bring up
Right.
the concerns what came up, but yeah. But yeah, when I read that, I was thinking more, yeah, that's the teacher.
Yeah, it could be, it's pretty open-ended.
The membership,
Have a spot.
What?
Exactly.
the membership line says at least 8 members, right? So,
Yeah.
so I
Yeah.
wonder if there should be a 9th bullet to say,
Oh, I see, because
as,
there's your.
you know, I don't know. I don't know how you word it, but.
Yeah, so I'll be honest with you, the bulleted numbers are taken directly from the RIDE
Right.
guidance.
I figured.
So if we're going to add recommendations to there, we should probably modify the sentence that modifies that bullet that says shall follow right school construction regulations. So, you know, it's 6 and 1, half a dozen the other.
It is, and as long as they have an understanding
Yeah.
that it's not just, and that they could add another bullet, then I think
Right.
that's.
While we're speaking of membership, I wasn't sure how are people voluntold? Or is there like an application or somebody, like I wasn't clear on how you become a member besides the appointment.
I mean, I would say this committee, no one should feel like they're required to be on it. I mean, it kind of defeats the purpose if it's something that you don't want to do.
Well, I didn't know
Except for
like
those two
if it was an application
Right,
process. So
yeah.
I'm a Joe Schmo in the community.
Yeah.
I really,
Right.
is there an application?
Right,
Do I just go ask? You know, I didn't know, I couldn't glean the process from this. I don't know if I should.
no, I was
So
wondering that as well.
The process. in this document?
So there is a section at the end that addresses vacancies. But to your point, at this point, it says vacancies and appointments to the building committee shall be reported and made as needed at regular meetings or subcommittee reports. In the event of a vacancy, the building committee chair or superintendent of schools will make a recommendation to the full school committee for appointment. Nominations will be approved by majority vote of the school committee. It's, for me, that maybe that's a remnant of kind of the ad hoc nature of the original charter. Because further down in membership, we actually discuss limits to terms, 2 consecutive terms of 4 years. So I guess I don't know if that means that there should be some language that aligns with how committee vacancies are filled by the
Communicated
school
and
committee.
filled, communicated and filled, I think. Because how would, I mean, potentially every 2 to 4 years, because, you know, depending on if they want to say, you might have to be finding.
Yeah, the way that it works for other committees in town, and I don't know if it works that way for subcommittees. I don't know if subcommittees have terms, or are they typically,
We do, like I'm in health development.
Yeah.
Terms, yeah,
how long are the terms?
2 years typically.
2 years? So we're doubling that here.
Well, actually, our health and wellness, we're going to go back and look at our, and do the similar thing because we can't get people to come to that.
Yeah.
So we're looking to,
Right.
you know, go to 4 years.
Yeah.
So you don't want to be saying you can't be here anymore, and then you got no one to replace.
Right.
I don't know if you use something similar to what your school improvement team policy says, where every March you put it out to the community, who wants to be part of it, they register through a Google form, and then it goes to the school committee to like a selection team, maybe. I think that's how it's written in the policy.
Well, we could, Joe, but, I mean, if you look at the list, school committee members.
Yeah.
I'm here, director of facilities is here, planning board representative, so we're not really gonna be taking
No, right.
applications. The school principal, to be honest, probably is gonna be voluntold. And I could see it being, like, it makes sense for you, Audrey, to be here
No,
now,
right.
but I can see, like, it becoming practice that a principal is on for 4 years and we cycle through, and now it's just in order to do that for 4 years, now Jen, you have to do it for 4 years or whatever, and
Mhm.
you will be directed by me, because you're not gonna volunteer.
It's the member one and the community member one,
Right.
probably, that are those kind of.
Right.
Right.
And our committee is bigger than 8, right? I think,
Yeah, we-
like at Dan. If he how does he get on?
Right.
If he wants to be, he's a parent, you know, vested in the community. I don't know how he got on originally, like, I don't know how I got voluntold, so I don't know what the rest of you got here.
I made the recommendation to have Dan on so
The chair
yes,
can recommend.
yes.
And the superintendent, I think, right? Or
Yes.
no? I think, yeah.
So that sounds like.
What about the town council, Chris?
Oh, right, we have a town council member. Did we,
But
was it
he's,
because he was an expert somewhere or was it?
oh, he's not planning board, he's.
No.
No, I think.
Yeah,
Councilor
we're
was-
currently,
Planning board.
I used to be.
Oh,
We're in violation of our.
we're violating.
Sorry.
Technically, Chris is ex officio of, the planning board as, town council president, so that's how we're kind of winking our way through there. Mainly because I didn't think that we needed a 13th member at this point.
I do worry a little, like, application kind of makes me a little like, whoa, not that it was clamoring, but it does make me a little, so I just don't know how other committees and subcommittees work. So as long as we're in line with how others work, just as long as it's clear.
Doesn't the school committee appoint their certain members? Do you guys vote
Yes.
or is that how does
We
it, right?
vote on
Who's gonna be this, who's gonna be this? But is it after they volunteer or is it just?
Usually when there's a discussion,
Yeah.
and first you ask about.
Right, right.
And pretty much there'll be someone who's gonna
Right.
volunteer. But if not, then it would be, okay, who is willing to go to that?
Yeah.
Because there has to be something.
So so the only times that I have made a recommendation, was after the bond approval. And that was when I think, Mark, you and I had a discussion. Did I come to you before?
Yeah, you agreed.
Yes, knowing Chris's work, in another district and knowing Dan's work, as a parent in advance of the bond. And at that time, we had also discussed asking you as well, Kristen, as a teacher and a parent. So those were the only, I think we did it all in one meeting, right? Yeah. So I guess, so that was more targeted for the task that we're doing right now. When it comes up, a standing committee is going to have, people are going to drop. I mean, this committee has had, far less turnover of people, especially in the last, couple of years. But once it becomes a standing committee and we get kind of through our big project, right now, there is going to be more turnover on an annual basis, just the nature of
Right,
it.
we're
I mean,
all invested in this,
Yeah.
in project.
let's
No.
put it this way. I resigned from the planning board last fall, and there have been 1, 2, 3 resignations since then, of a 7-person board.
I'm sure.
So, there's, I'm not saying that I was the glue that was holding everything together, but,
But, you know,
it's just the way that it is.
Yeah.
People's personal schedules change. They no
Right.
longer can find that they can make, all of the commitments for the meetings. So I think there is an opportunity to open it back up to the school committee to fill a vacancy if there is a role that is not defined under the RIDE regulations. And I don't know if that is implicit in the vacancies section. I had added that superintendent of schools, the original charter only listed the building committee chair as, the person to make a recommendation. I just added what we've already been doing anyway, which is both you and myself. But if we want to modify that vacancy to align more with, the kind of alignment with the other subcommittees, we certainly can do so. This is not something that I feel is necessary for a chair to necessarily do.
right. So I just feel like, so if the school committee is responsible, I think, like, are you gonna get it? No, I don't think people are gonna be knocking down the door necessarily but are you gonna get someone that says, well, I would have liked to do that, but I think, you know what I mean? I don't know, a community member where it says community member, would you get someone? And then what would be the response?
But if you have a school committee member on here, they would have the responsibility to go to the school committee meeting and mention it during one of the subcommittee meetings, right? Like
Right,
we're
but
looking
just put it
for,
out there,
we're
right,
looking
but then
for,
how do we?
contact the school committee.
Okay.
Okay, well, then that
That's
would
the
work.
process. That's
Then
great.
that would work.
Okay.
So it's publicly stated and then contact the school committee, that, rather than a form, just interest.
Yeah.
Okay.
That would make sense.
Satisfies that.
So if we go back to that educational mission person, that member, we probably should just get and have it at being, a member of the teaching staff or support staff.
I agree.
Steve is here because he replaced Dr. Story. That, by Ride's definition and this, Dr. Story never had to be here. So we could excuse Steve and just always have a teacher or a para.
Thanks.
I guess I am confused then.
I had to help you out, buddy.
But couldn't you guys also, like,
I'm
if you
screwed up.
couldn't make it,
You can
couldn't
make
he
it,
be a
right.
stand-in for you if you weren't able to make it or something?
And he would.
Right,
If there was something important coming, I could say, Steve, I can't make that meeting, can you go in my stead? But he doesn't have to be a permanent member.
I'm gonna be the alternate.
Is that what the alternates are for?
Yeah, right.
Yes.
So I think, so the 8 listed members are, I think, in order to kind of keep us from running afoul of any ride approvals or whatever. So I just think it's, whether or not we encode it in the charter or we let the school committee know the preference of, additional people. I guess my question is, do you have that listed in the charter, or do you stick with what we have listed as the minimums, understanding that we have no cap on the amount of members and may either leave it up to the school committee to populate it with additional value to the building committee. I guess that's what my question is here. Do you want us to enter something in here or have it be implicit that there's a preference to have additional people be on the 8 listed?
So
I always think explicit is better than.
Yeah.
No, I mean, when I made my comment and then now listening to the discussion and going back to the at least 8,
Right,
you could have 2 of that third bullet essentially, if they so choose.
Yeah.
Which again, can represent teacher, para,
and
myself, or whomever.
right.
I think it'll work.
Okay.
So if something is just, or, I mean, the school committee would do that, just added saying that the school committee will, announce it or communicate it, and if anyone is interested, they should email the committee. I don't know if it needs to be on here, but
Not really, because that's how we populate any subcommittees. We get the word out and.
then that would,
We don't need to say anything about open meeting laws or, or could we just say any of those, or those imply?
If it's a subcommittee of the building committee, if it's a subcommittee of the school committee, it isn't like.
Okay.
It's all. You're subject to open meeting.
is it a subcommittee? School building committee charter.
It's interesting. I had this conversation or this email exchange with Rose earlier. It's always been called a subcommittee,
Right.
just in discussion, but I didn't make any modifications to the original charter when it said school building committee.
Oh, just,
That's just the way that it's listed. And I like abbreviating it to SBC when I'm writing my notes rather than SBS.
He said each.
well, I guess essentially it is because the school committee is really, these are the ones that make the final decisions anyway, because it
Yep.
really is a subcommittee of.
There's a policy for every subcommittee?
No,
Yeah.
the subcommittees usually have charters similar.
So I'm gonna take you back 5 years to when this charter first came up. If you recall, we had just had a bond defeated. There was a lot of questions about what direction should we take? Should we call a timeout? Should we should we reconstitute the work? There was a desire by the school committee at the time to give what the school committee at the time didn't want to have happen is send another building committee out to do work that then all of a sudden was controversial or, you know, wasn't necessarily in line with what the school committee's wishes were. So they put this together as the framework for us to do the work. We are now, so the original charter was very specific to, you know, the work that we're doing right now. This is intended to be more broad to manage kind of, you know, a little bit more of a wider swath, maybe a wider fiscally, but cover more ground to help assist public schools and capital stuff as well. So I don't know if every subcommittee has I'm guessing you don't have a charter for.
Not for everyone, but some like health and wellness stuff.
So how do you guys want to approach this? Do you want to take another crack at editing to take it up at the next meeting? Do you think the bones are there? We kick it to the school committee to add their 2 cents and modify as they see fit?
Your sense, Mike.
I think the more complete the charter is, the better they'll like it. And also, if they start talking about it, they may start adding different things on it and making it more complicated. I would think to the finished product, if they really want to do something, they'll do it. If they really want to change something, but I mean, overall, everything here is good. I think we should add anything about adding the teachers. I think we should make it more clear about what we want to do about how do we open up, and maybe there's some discussion at the school committee level, we might send it back for more clarification. But I think the clearer, the more direct we are, the better.
So take another crack.
Yeah.
Okay, so please tell me what crack I should take here. Just so I can be clear.
All right, so if we're talking again about that one that's the third from the bottom, I would just said a WPS educator who has now replaced the word member with that.
Yeah, I like that.
WPS educator, and that could mean the assistant soup, it could mean a teacher, it could mean a parent. Does that work for you?
More specific, yep.
Anything else? Do you want some language in the vacancies to reference that vacancies will be identified by the chair or superintendent of the schools for the school committee to solicit?
Yeah, I think that would be a good idea.
Via email, solicited.
Yeah.
How about this? That the
Right, at the first line.
shall be reported and made as needed at regular meetings.
Or recorded and publicized.
Rather than reported, right?
Mhm.
I mean, reported in,
Like, oh, we have an opening, that's
Publicly-
reporting, and
publicly
we're
report.
publicly stating, we're publicizing that we have a vacancy.
So under that, under, I think the way that our discussion just went, we would delete the second sentence there.
I mean, or you add in one that says. Or you add, I mean, they could make a recommendation or somehow. Someone who expressed interest, I don't know.
You're still making the recommendation,
Yeah.
right? So even if it gets publicly reported and 3 people come forward,
Right,
the building committee chair or the superintendent is deciding who.
we'll then decide, right,
Yeah.
we'll then make a
We'll
recommendation.
recommend, yeah.
So that's
Okay.
what helping on. I'm just going back to health and wellness. If we have a vacancy, we get recommendations and we just feel like there's a need. And no one's, knocking on the door to join it. So you have to go into that recommendation
Right.
group. Or even seek out.
All right, okay.
All right, I will update this for us to pick up at the next meeting.
You think it needs to come back here, or do we think that those changes, you just make those tweaks?
Those are
We
pretty
put it on
modest
board.
changes that I think that we could make a recommendation as amended.
Agree.
Okay,
That sounds good.
And then we just put it on the agenda for May 7th.
Okay.
Because then if the school committee does have input, they'll make their motions and tweak it a little bit, hopefully.
okay, so
That'll be that.
So the amendments to this as written will be under the 6th bullet point under membership. A Westerly Public, rather than member, a member who has knowledge of the educational mission and function of the facility will read a Westerly Public Schools educator who has knowledge of the educational
If they're an
mission.
educator, don't they have knowledge of I would hope,
Yes, but
you still have to say that?
Well, I just wanted to make it clear that we're gonna try and have teachers.
No, I know, but I'm saying after you say a Westerly Public Schools educator, do you also still have to say who has knowledge?
I would like this, I personally would like this line,
Oh, because
this
it's right.
line,
Oh,
to
yeah.
reflect what the.
That's true.
So just to take it a step further, should it be an internal? I mean, you could have knowledge of the educational mission and function of the facility, but not technically be.
Yeah, but if you say a Westerly Public
Yeah.
Schools educator, who has that, right?
Plus, it's a teacher, it's an employee.
But if you read
Yeah.
that sentence, no.
No, he's gonna change it. He's
Right,
gonna
so,
change.
so we're
from
talking about the
member-
amendments to this that we're then gonna vote on.
Instead of a member, we'll say a Westerly Public
Gotcha.
Schools employee, so.
So 6th bullet point down, a Westerly Public Schools educator who has knowledge of the educational mission and function of the facility.
Perfect.
So now, when will this become effective though?
That's,
Upon completion of the elementary project?
I would say that that's,
Yeah.
that's when it would be.
Right. Right.
So I guess we're modifying something that is gonna take effect for
For a while, yeah, but
But at least this would encode, the work that we're doing on a capital, we're kind of tackling along with where, the capital projects were, at least we're by charter, we're in alignment.
are those beyond the scope of the current charter?
Yes.
Then, yeah, then maybe we continue to live in two parallel universes here, and both of them.
Or we
kinda
just,
control at the same time.
or the school committee would vote to have, whoever start a 4-year term and whoever start a 2-year term, and that would take us through the remainder of the. Okay, let's just make sure that the other edit that we discussed under vacancies was simply to change the first sentence to read, vacancies and appointments of the building committee shall be reported and publicized as needed at regular meetings under subcommittee reports.
Perfect.
Okay. So is everybody comfortable with what the modifications that we just made?
Yes.
Okay. So the motion would be as amended, to recommend, recommend these modifications to the school building committee charter and membership.
So move.
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Is that?
You can, if you want to frame it and put it on your wall, you can.
If you want it back.
No, it's okay. So I had sent that Word file with the markups of the road. I'm guessing the sheet of just.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. We still have one more item. Next steps. Let's see, our next meeting. I will say that we're meeting with the Springbrook and Dunn's Corner contractor next Friday as an update, kind of a status update, just to make sure that they're on track for completion for the end of the summer. We're going to meet in here next Friday with the town manager, Downs, the architect, myself, Mark, and the contractor team. I'll report anything out at the next meeting. As of right now, we will have a meeting scheduled for May 14th and May 28th. I'll gauge from, well, I guess we should probably keep the May 14th because that, I'm a little surprised that we didn't have any contractor invoices for this one, although I think we did at the last meeting. So the first meeting, we'll make sure that we hold so that we can pay the bills. The second meeting, depending on how, whether or not there's anything that we need to do, may be the one that we may end up canceling. But I think we can expect that probably from here until August, there's likely going to be the need to approve PCOs, to approve other costs, to be able to respond to events happening in the field. So we'll assume that we'll be meeting May 14th, May 28th, June 11th, June 25th. I'm going to try like hell not to meet July 9th. But July 9th, July 23rd, August 13th, and August 27th. Okay. Anything else for next steps? Anybody wants to see anything that we're not reporting out, but we want to see at the next meeting? Going once?
I actually have a question.
Yes.
When the projects are completed, will there be opportunities for community members to see them for like what they voted for? What does that look like?
I think we should put that in the discussion for next steps. The reason why we're meeting with the new construction, we aren't going to be there until this time next year. The reason why we're meeting with the contractors on May 7th and then, or next Friday, which is May 2nd, and then at the end of May, is that we are having some get real conversations about making sure that they can complete, because if they can't, we need to make sure before everybody breaks for the summer, that notification is sent out just to say, hey, just if we run into snags, we want to be able to prepare people as early as possible. So I think after next week's meeting, we'll have a better understanding. But certainly I think if everything is, on track to complete, we should celebrate the completion of those projects prior to school starting. I'm going to warn you, they're going to be going right up to the
Well, even
opening
after the
school.
fact, I was
Yes.
thinking,
Right.
Yeah.
I voted for this, so I would love to see what it looks like.
I wonder if it'd be worth carving some money out of the contingency to hire one of our local video people.
Chris Walsh.
that's the name I was thinking of, but yeah, to do a nice quality video that's posted everywhere, goes on social media and it's sent, so people can see it without coming out to
Right.
see it.
Great idea.
That's good to see it.
That's perfect for.
Yeah, let's make sure that we discuss that.
For this coming summer with the work at Dunn's and Springbrook, I don't think it's gonna be, remember last year they were gonna do the walls and they were gonna do some of the floors. Is there work that might affect teachers having to, there is. So again, like last year, I was like, as soon as that's something that teachers can be aware of.
Yeah, and I think that's being communicated already. Yeah.
We've met with Dunn's and Springbrook, to go over the summer plans.
Yeah.
I've met with a few teachers at Dunn's, not so many at Springbrook, but we're trying to get them
Yeah.
a sense of what's
Yep.
coming, showing them the furniture layouts that will be there when they come back.
Yep.
And get any kind of questions and concerns they may have now addressed.
We've also tried to carve out CPT time, back time, and staff meeting time for people to prep and whatever for elementary transition and redesign as well. Clean up, purge, get your room
We got a purge, yeah.
for all three buildings, like just, you know, because they're consolidating, they're moving, they're packing, and
Right.
we are getting ready for the big haul.
Yeah.
So,
I worked on a project where we rebuilt a four-story classroom building. And they moved everything in, and when school started, there was complaint that the HVAC system sounded musty, it smelled musty. So there was concern that they didn't seal the ductwork properly. There was moisture in the ductwork, got the sniffers out there, tried to figure out what was going on. What we found out was it was the books that they had moved out and moved back in.
I don't doubt it.
Yeah.
You can, I'm sure you'll be able to smell them from the street. You can.
I'm still, like, this is the first year in 8 years or 9 years that I don't have a kid going to State Street.
So you
So,
miss the smell.
yeah, right.
You could sniff Audrey and I anytime.
All right, let's keep it PG here. Okay, anything else? All right, there's no members of the public here, so we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you.